So thank you so much and welcome everybody to the first session for the newly named group Mumukshu Moti. So we will truly be looking at the Mumukshutva scriptures of India, which are the Upanishads and subsequently the Vedas, time permitting and interest and feasibility permitting. But we will look at the Upanishads from today onwards. So we need to understand where the Upanishads fall in the Indian religious literature. We all understand broadly that Upanishads are also called Vedanta, and Vedanta, by the logic of its very name, is Ved and Anta. Anta means end, so something which is positioned at the end of the Vedas. So the end of the Vedas are to be understood in two ways. One is the physical end in terms of the structure of the Vedas and the last few chapters of the Vedas being Upanishads. That's one way of looking at it. And Vedanta is also interpreted as the culmination of the thought process in the Vedas, so Vedanta. So all that the Vedas represent are embodied in the ideas contained in the Upanishads. So these are two ways to understand the Upanishads when they are called as Vedanta. But we will look a little more into the way in which one can find the Upanishads in the religious literature. So we are all aware of the fact that the most ancient and the substantial literature of India are the Vedas. But the Vedas are simply spoken about as Vedas. But if you ask people, they will be able to name to you the four Vedas, Rig, Yajur, Atharva, and Sama Veda, or rather Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva Veda. So that's the sequence in which it is usually named. But thereafter, people become a little doubtful as to what is there and where are the Upanishads found. So we need to understand that the Rig Veda, which is the oldest Veda, has got 10 mandalas. And this is the Samahita part. So every Veda, when you say Rig Veda, it has got 4 parts. One is called Samahita. The other is called Brahmana. The next one is called Aranyaka. And the fourth one is called Upanishad. So there are 4 branches to every Veda. So usually the Samahita portion is what we normally refer to as the Veda. So Rig Veda is Rig Veda Samahita. Then Yajur Veda is Yajur Veda Samahita. Samahita means collection, Samana Eksat. And Atharva Veda Samahita and Sama Veda Samahita. The attached Brahmanas are a commentary on the Veda. Now, when you normally conceive of the word commentary as we currently understand, you may think that it takes every shloka, every mantra in the Veda and comments on it. But it is not a commentary in that sense. These are, if I may say, general observations, opinions, and broad comments about the Veda to which they are attached. And each of these Brahmanas has a different name. So you will not say for Rigveda Samahita, logically the comment section should be called Rigveda Brahmana, but it is not called Rigveda Brahmana. It is called by the name of Aitreya Brahmana. Okay. And similarly, for the Rigveda, there are actually 2 Brahmanas. One is called Kaushitaki Brahmana and other one is called Aitreya Brahmana. And these are the Brahmanas giving comments on the Rigveda. Similarly, when it comes to Yajurveda, Yajurveda itself is of the Yajurveda Samahita is of 2 categories. The Samahita, that is the first column is Samahita, second column is Brahmana, if we mentally visualize that. In the first column, when we talk about Yajurveda, we have 2 divisions, Shukla Yajurveda, which you must have heard of, and Krishna Yajurveda. So in the Shukla Yajurveda, the Brahmana is called Shatapatha Brahmana. And in the Krishna Yajurveda, you actually have 3 Brahmanas, which is Taittiriya Brahmana, Maitrayaniya Brahmana, and Kataka Brahmana. So there are 3 comment groups for the Krishna Yajurveda. Then for the Samaveda, you have Talavakra, Talavakara Brahmana and Chandogya Brahmana. And for Atharva Veda, you have Gopada Brahmana. So all the Brahmanas, as I explained earlier, are all comments, a collection of comments, not commentary, which may mean a logical sequence in terms of shloka wise or mantra wise or yaju wise. So the contents are called differently. The contents of the Rig Veda are called Riks. The contents of the Yajur Veda are called Yajus. And the contents of Sama Veda are called Saman. And so it is not correct to call it shlokas, because by shlokas we mean something which is even more further down the road. And it's a common term that is used for the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, where you have Anushtup Chanda, you have shlokas. So traditionally in the Vedic terminology, you will say that I'm chanting or reading the Rigveda Samahita consisting of Riks. I am chanting or reading the Yajurveda Samahita, whether it is Krishna Yajurveda or Shukla Yajurveda. So Krishna means dark and Shukla is white, which we understand. You'll be saying that I am reading the Yajus and Yaju, so therefore Yajurveda, and Sama, Saman. And Atharva Veda does not have any particular term. You can call it as mantras. It does not have any particular term for the contents of the Samahita. So that is the second column. So Samahita, Brahmana. Then you have what is called the Aranyaka. Aranyaka are actually compositions beyond the Brahmana, and Aranyaka means forest. So these are supposed to have been composed after the Brahmanas were in terms of chronology, and it is and not every Veda has a Aranyaka. In fact, the Rig Veda has two Aranyakas which are named similarly to the Brahmana. So Aitareya Aranyaka and Kaushitaki Aranyaka, but there is no Shatapatha Aranyaka. Shatapatha, I mean, in that category there is no name. So Shatapatha is only a Brahmana for the Yajurveda. Okay, and then you have for the Yajurveda only one more Aranyaka. So you have only three Aranyakas, two of them attached to the Rig Veda and one attached to the Yajur Veda. So that is the third column. Now comes the most important fourth column, which is our column, the Upanishad column, because we said Samahita. I'm repeating myself so that the message is under Brahmana, Aranyaka, and Upanishad. So Upanishads, we have, it's a separate set of compositions, physically different from the Samahita. It is identified. Sometimes it is a part of the Samahita, sometimes a part of the Aranyaka, sometimes a part of the Brahmana. So, but it is classified differently. Its origin could be any one of the previous three columns or not at all. It could be independent. So we need to understand that very clearly. And therefore, what are the Upanishads we have? Attached to the Rig Veda, we have the Aitareya Upanishad and Kaushitaki Upanishad. Attached to the Shukla Yajur Veda, which is what we will be looking at today, because you have the Ishavasya Upanishad and the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Then attached to the Krishna Yajur Veda, we have Taittiriya Upanishad, Mahanarayana Upanishad, Shvetashvatara Upanishad, and Kathopanishad, where you had heard of Nachiketa. Then in the Sama Veda, you have the Keno Upanishad and the Chandogya Upanishad. And the Atharva Veda has Mundaka Upanishad, Mandukya Upanishad, and Prashna Upanishad. So this is how we get the Upanishads, because they are attached to the Vedas that are the origin, and that is how we understand. Now, a little further about the Upanishads, which is Upanishads, when you look at them and you try to understand them, they are categorized into major Upanishads and minor Upanishads. Major Upanishads are the ones, are actually 13, though Shankaracharya commented on 10. So if we take the 13 number is something that is arrived at in this fashion. So I'll just tell you. the chronological arrangement. Yeah, I'm just coming to that particular. Okay. So the 13 Upanishads are called the old Upanishads, and they are basically the Isha, Kena, Katha, Prashna, Mundaka, Mandukya, Taitriya, Aitareya, Chandogya, Brihadaranyaka, Shweta, Shvatara, Kaushitaki, and Maitri. So sometimes the 13th Upanishad varies, but that is the order. This order is given by one of the other minor Upanishads called Muktiko Upanishad, where it is given in the sequence. And usually when students learn the Upanishads, they learn it in the sequence given by one of the minor Upanishads. Now, there are supposed to have been around 216 Upanishads, apart from the major ones that I have told you about. And many of them are lost. So as of now, scholars have been able to identify and been able to translate, I would say, 112 Upanishads. So I'll just show this book to you. So this is a book where we have the 112 Upanishads, and they have been translated into English, and they are done by a board of scholars. Now, the Upanishads can be categorized in many interesting ways. One is, of course, the major Upanishads, which is the 13 that I named, which are also the older Upanishads, and all the other Upanishads, which become minor Upanishads. But we have a very interesting classification given by a more modern commentator, which is Pandit Sriram Sharma Acharya. You know, he's the one from Haridwar, and he also has an ashram. He's the one who popularizes the chanting of the Gayatri Mantra. So he has 3 volumes of the translations of the Upanishads in Hindi. So they are like this. I'll just show the book to you. It is called 108 Upanishad. So according to him, it is not 112 Upanishads. He's, eliminated a few of them. And there are 3 volumes. So one is called Jnana Khand. The other is called Sadhana Khand. And the third one is called Brahma Vidya Khand. Now, your question must be, where do the old Upanishads, with Isha, Kena, Katha, the 13 that I named, where do they fall? They fall in what is called Jnana Khand. So in Jnana Khand, the Upanishads that are there, okay, it's also more over and above the 13. Oh, sorry. It falls in the Brahma Vidya Khand. Brahma Vidya Khand. Hey, okay, 1 minute. Let me just get this clarified. I'm going to tell you a little bit of the classification. Yeah, I was right. So the Jnana Khand consists of the 13 Upanishads plus a few others. So it, as per Pandit Sriram Sharma, the Jnana Khand consists of Amrutanado Upanishad, then Ishavasyo Upanishad, then Ekaksharo Upanishad, Aitareya Upanishad, Katho Upanishad, Keno Upanishad, Gayatri Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad, Taitriya Upanishad, Nadabindu Upanishad, Niralambo Upanishad, Pranavo Panupanishad, Prashno Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Mantriko Upanishad, Mandukya Upanishad, Mundaka Upanishad, Mudgolya Upanishad, Maitranya Upanishad, Shiva Sankalpa Upanishad, Shuka Rahasya Upanishad, Shweta Shvatara Upanishad, Sarvasara Upanishad, and Skando Upanishad. So most of the 13 fall in this, but there are 2 which fall in the Brahma Vidya Khand, as per Pandit Sriram Sharma, which is Kaushitaki Upanishad falls in that, and Kaivalya Upanishad. And you have other Upanishads, Atharvashira Upanishad, Adhyatma Vidya Upanishad, and so on and so forth. And Sadhana Khand, which is the third, consists of Upanishads like Akshamaliko Upanishad, Kali Santarana Upanishad. In fact, the Kali Santarana Upanishad is a very famous Upanishad, because it is here that you have the famous mantra, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. In a conversation between Brahmaji and Narad, Narad says, Hare Baba, ye Kali Yug hai. Brahmaji, humko batao, what should the Agyanis of Kali Yug do? So Brahmaji says, the only thing that Agyanis can do is, even their tongues cannot chant properly. The easiest mantra for them is Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this is what the ISKCON people quote as the authority for their Maha Mantra. So that is a brief introduction to the Upanishads in terms of their links. So the minor Upanishads are also linked to the Vedas independently, like the fourth column is, but they are of more recent origin, and they are also likely to be a little more sectarian in the sense that you have Shakti Upanishads, you have Ganapati Upanishads, you have Vishnu Upanishad, you have Shiva Upanishad. So the presiding deity behind these Upanishads. Whereas if you take the 13 Upanishads, which are the principal Upanishads, there is usually no mention of a deity. They're also older Upanishads. So there'll be a reference, if at all, to the older Vedic deities like Indra, Prajapati, Agni. Of course, we do have Uma as the consort of Shiva who comes in. So there is a greater number of older Vedic deities than the later ones that you find in the old Upanishads. And the new Upanishads will have specific references to deities like Ganapati, Shakti, Kumara, and Surya. There's a Surya Upanishad, then Gayatri, and Varaha Upanishad, which talks about Advaita. So there are also different philosophies which are put together in these various other Upanishads. So that's an introduction. So I thought I'll stop here so that on the introductory part, if you have any thoughts to share or questions to ask, I can address them at this point in time, because I have brought together all my Upanishad books here. So please ask any question. I should be able to source an answer for you.
उपनिषदों के नाम क्या ऋषियों के नाम से दिए गए हैं?
No, so the names of the Upanishads could either be the first word of the Upanishad, or like Ishavasya Upanishad is because Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat tena tektena bhunjita ma grudha kasyas vidhanam. Because the first word is Ishavasyam, the Upanishad is called Ishavasya. So it is not that they are, sometimes it may be named after the Rishi, sometimes it may be named after the subject, like Mundaka and Mandukya. So Mundaka is jiska mundan ho gaya hai. So it is meant for sannyasis. Manduka means frog. So when the Vedas are chanted in the rainy season, from a distance it will sound as though frogs are going quang, 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 quang. So it is called Mandukya Upanishad. So there are different reasons why names are given. Brihadaranyaka, Brihat Aranyaka. Brihat means great forest. So the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is very, very voluminous. It's one of the largest Upanishads, and it is called Brihadaranyaka because it was composed in a great forest somewhere among the forests in India.
ये order बताया है, ये इसका कोई reason है खास?
The order that the students learn is because the order is in Muktika Upanishad. I'll just pull out the Muktika Upanishad because it will be in one of the, I will tell you in which khand also it comes in the classification that we have from Sri Ram Pandit Sharma Acharya. Give me a minute. So Akshamala. Okay. Then no, so it is not in Sadhana Khand. It has to be in Brahma Vidya Khand. Let us see. Atharvashish. Paramahamsa. Sorry. It must be in Dhyana Khand. Let me see. I should be able to find this Upanishad. Let's see. Skando Sarvo Maitra Mudgalyo Mandukyo Mantriko. Mantriko Upanishad. Sometimes the names are a little different. Mantriko Upanishad. Let me see.
So you called Muktika.
Muktika, but I'm not able to find Muktika here. I said Muktika, but in this, it's not there. Okay. So in Pandit Sri Ram Sharma Acharya, I'm not able to find Muktika Upanishad. Let me look at the English translation because the sequence is very clearly given in Muktika Upanishad. I remember seeing it. I don't know whether it was in English or Hindi. So let me just check. Isha Kena Katha Mandukya Aitreya Brahmana नारायणो नरसिंहो मैत्रेयो सुबालोक शूरिको निरालंबो तेजो नादो यज्ञवल्क्यो. इसमें नहीं है. Okay, it should be here in this last volume. So this is Dhyana Bindu, Sita Upanishad, Mudgalo Upanishad, Maha Upanishad, Surya Upanishad, Katharudra Upanishad, Bhavo Rudro, Mahavakya Upanishad, Muktiko Upanishad. Yes, it is there. Page, it is the 93rd Upanishad in this book, page 494. So Muktiko, we will go for the sequence, to understand page 494. We will understand the sequence. So kya bolte hain? So this is a conversation between Lord Rama, Sri Rama and Hanuman. Okay. So one question, first question that Hanuman asks is, how many Vedas are there and what are their branches? So it's basically, see, the classification has been given here. Okay. Now, second chapter is, so यहाँ पे है सर, ये अपना एक मिनट इसका. So in Muktiko Upanishad, the 30th.
30 to 39 इसका श्लोक होगा.
Yeah, so the 30th Upanishad is Ishakena Katha Prashna Munda Mandukya Taititrihi Etereya Cha Chandokya Cha Brahadaranyaka Tatha. So it says very clearly there that this is what has been listed first and people follow the tradition. Yeah. So it is in Muktiko Upanishad, it is in Shloka 30, and of course 31, 32, 33, 34 go on to list the other Upanishads also, and it is done in a way in which it is also rhythmic. So for example, if you look at how a chanda is composed, and Sunilji understands the rhythm, so look at the rhythm. Ishakena Katha Prashna Mundamandukya Taititri Etereya Cha Chandogyam Brahadaranyakam Tatha. So there is a beautiful rhythm to the entire construction of the sequence of the naming itself, and therefore it is Ishakena Katha. But modern, I have a very interesting book, which in fact I purchased in Allahabad when I had come in 2008. Okay. And I was surprised. I got it in that, I got it in some bookshop near El Chico restaurant. Okay. So it's a book called 10 Upanishads and 4 Vedas. It is written by a guy called Ram Piparia. Okay. So ये मुझे Allahabad में 2008 में मिला. When I think we had just gone there. So when this guy started studying the Upanishads, because he is totally anglicized in the sense that he is not aware of Muktiko Upanishad. So what he did was he studied the Upanishads in alphabetical order. So that brings us to what you had suggested, Aitreya Upanishad, ABCD, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad. That's what he had done. So it's just a matter of convenience, because ABCD we normally don't do, because ABCD did not exist as far as the ancient tradition is concerned. ABCD is a consequence of the Roman alphabet in which English is written.
इसमें इंटरेस्टिंग मैंने ये ऑब्जर्व किया, ये मुक्तिको उपनिषद ने अपने आप को 108th नंबर पे रखा है, और वो 108th नंबर पे बेसिकली ग्लॉसरी दिया गया है जो और सारे को लिस्ट करती है.
Correct.
और इसमें जो 112 आप बोल रहे हो वो एक्चुअली स्कॉलर्स के बीच में डिबेट है कि वो 3 को माना जाए कि नहीं माना जाए. तो ज्यादातर स्कॉलर्स 108 उपनिषद ही मानते हैं, मेजर माइनर मिला के. 3 में थोड़ा सा डिबेट रहता है, तो इसलिए वो कहीं पर 108 दिखता है, कहीं 111 और 12 दिखता है वो नंबर. पर मुक्तिको जो है वो 108th इटसेल्फ है.
करेक्ट.
और उसने अपने ऊपर सारी लिस्ट जो है उसके अंदर लिस्ट कर दिया है.
करेक्ट.
एंड मे बी जो आपने रिथम का एग्जांपल लिया वो शायद ऑर्डर बनाया गया हो कि रिथम से उसने सारे वो दिया है. बट आई डू नॉट नो इफ देयर इज ए लॉजिक बिहाइंड कि उस जो स्टडी है हमको किसी पर्टिकुलर ऑर्डर में करने का इंपॉर्टेंस हो कि किसी उपनिषद में प्रीवियस को रेफर किया गया हो, इसलिए ऐसा दिया गया हो.
No, so if you were to look at that, if that were the logic, then you have to go by the age of the Upanishads, because
Yeah,
there is
yeah,
an age.
yes.
And when you look at the age of the Upanishads, I have a reference to that, which I'm going to share with you, because I asked myself the same questions that you're asking right now. And, I have this book by R.D. Ranade, it's called a constructive survey of Upanishadic philosophy. So he was one of the great professors of philosophy, like Hiriyanna and Radhakrishnan. He was of that era. So he has done a very great study of the Upanishads and what he has to say in terms of the chronological arrangement. He says if you're chronologically arranged, then your sequence should be like this. Brihadaranyaka, Chandogya. These are the oldest Upanishads. Then Isha and Kena. This is the second. Third is Aitreya, Taitriya, and Kaushitaki. This is the third generation. Fourth generation is Katho, Mundaka, and Shvetashvatara. Fifth generation is Prashna, Maitri, and Mandukya. So either we take it up in chronological sequence, or we take it up. You can also do it one more way. If you were to start from the shortest Upanishad, then you have to start with Mundaka Upanishad. It's only 12 shlokas. So Mundaka, Isha, and then of course you can build on 35, 40. But people normally don't start with Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. They start with Isha and Kena, because Isha and Kena are relatively smaller and they also contain the major ideas. So the point to answer you, Sunilji, is Isha and Kena. So the logic of so according to Swami Ranganathananda, 3 Upanishads represent the ideas of all the Upanishads, and they are the Isha, Kena, and Kathopanishads. Okay. And according to Swami Parthasarathi, who runs the Vedanta Institute, which is of Lonavala, A. Parthasarathi, according to him, there are 4 Upanishads which contain all the ideas that every Upanishad has, which is Isha, Keno, Kaivalyo, and Mundako. So my idea is that we should focus on Isha, Kena, Katho, Kaivalyo, Mundako. So it's more or less the same sequence. If you do the first 6 that are there, you more or less are able to arrive at the entire sequence of thought that you have in the Upanishads. So what is the Isha, Kena, Katha, Mundaka, Prashna, Maitri. So I think Isha and Kena, there is no doubt about it. So let us do Isha and Kena. That's the logic. Right? Because you see, if you start with Brihadaranyaka has got, I'll tell you, I have with me Radhakrishnan's translation, and the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad translations themselves run to, I'll tell you, 333 pages of translations. So many shlokas से आपकी हवा निकल जाएगी. You will say हमने उपनिषद स्टार्ट ही क्यों किया?
नहीं, बट इसमें मुझे लगता है बहुत ज्यादा क्रॉस रेफरेंसिंग होगा नहीं, इंडिपेंडेंटली आराम से सीख पाएंगे.
No, the cross-referencing will be downward cross-referencing. So I'll be referencing it to the Bhagavad Gita, because Bhagavad Gita derives its message from. So wherever you can reference it to the Bhagavad Gita, I'll try to do that, because commentators have also done that, and whatever insight strikes me, I would do it, because anyway we've done the Gita and we need to understand how the Upanishads influence the Gita, which is the whole idea behind going back to the Upanishads, so that we see not only the ideas that have been drawn from it in the Gita, because they would be the best ideas of the Upanishads, also the broad structure of the Upanishad themselves. So that's Sunilji's question. Yeah, Sunil Rastogi, from your side.
The Vedanta जो कह रहे हैं इसको कि वेदांत वेदों का अंत, तो it is a summary of Vedanta or it is a...
No, it is like a logical culmination. And A plus B plus C plus D, if you say is equal to E, then E is the logical culmination. It's like saying that I have built up a order of thoughts, a sequence of ideas, and it has to culminate in a certain grand idea. So the grand idea is what is called Vedanta. So it is not
Okay.
summary. It is
Okay.
super summary. It is super conclusion, super implication.
तो दिस मीन्स अगर हम उपनिषद अगर पढ़ लेते हैं तो हमें वेदांत का वेदों का आइडिया हो सकता है थोड़ा. It can say.
Thoda, but not exactly, because Ved has got, I mean, see, okay, now here we come to a very interesting sort of view of the Vedas. See, one way to look at the Vedas is to call it as Samahita, Brahmana, Aranyaka, and Upanishad, which is what we were talking about here. There are also some people who classify it as Karma Kand and Jnana Kand. So Karma Kand is supposed to be all rituals, जो भी आपके हवन होते हैं, and Jnana Kand is supposed to be Upanishad. But this is not correct, because there is not one Rik in the Rig Veda, there is not one Yaju in the Yajur Veda, there is not one Saman in the Sama Veda, which talks about ritual. So coming back to your question about the Vedas are a structure of thought which the Indian civilization respected a lot, but it is very, very difficult to understand in the sense that there are lots of indirect references. So it was deemed to be important that one section of society called the Brahmins, their only job in life was to remember the Vedas, और कुछ काम नहीं था उनको, because society gave that much importance. So much so that the actual meaning of the Vedas is not really known to the people who remember it. And the first commentary on the Vedas was itself only in 14th century AD by a Vidwan called Sayanacharya, who was the Pradhan Mantri of the first king of Vijayanagar kingdom, Hakka Bukka. Those were the founders of the Vijayanagar kingdom. Their prime minister was a very great scholar, and he is the one who commissioned all the scholars to come together and say that let us write a commentary on the Rig Veda. Subsequently, Aurobindo took up the commentary of the Rig Veda to say that what you see there, because wahan pe they will say Somras. Most of the people will think Somras is something to drink, whereas it is the delight of happiness. जब आपका in the language of the Bhagavad Gita, जब आपको आत्म ज्ञान होता है, उसकी जो खुशी है, उसको वेदों में सोमरस बुलाते हैं. So there are a lot of these kinds of interpretations which have to be made for the Vedas, and therefore to answer your question, it is yes, it is a logical extension of the Vedas, but if you read the Veda and say where is the extension, you will not find it.
Okay.
You have to understand. I was reading somewhere, this is in a book called Secret of Gita. Okay. So this is by our friend Jaydayal Goyandaka, apna jo hai Gita Press wala. Okay. What he says is something very interesting, which is very relevant. इसने एक article लिखा है called Difference Between Meaning and Secret. Can you see the title there?
Yeah.
So what he says is, भाई अगर आपके पास गीता शास्त्र है या ऋग्वेद संहिता है, एक तो उसका surface meaning होता है, which is what we're trying to learn. But there is a secret, which is the implication. Implication or secret is not known to everybody unless you read, understand all the time. So Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda have got a lot of secret meanings, which if I simply see, since India is an oral tradition, simply to keep 10,000 mantras of the Rig Veda alive for 5 millennia is by itself a feat without one loss of akshara. So it's a tremendous feat of knowledge, tremendous feat of memorization. But that is only the word. Word ke piche kya hai is something that still scholars are working out, because the original rishis and munis who had the revelation of the Rig Veda, they may have left the secret meaning to their Shishyas, but those Shishyas may not all have transferred because you are only looking at remembering the main body, which is the Rig Veda. उसका जो implication है वो दिमाग में ही रह गया, and when the student died off, the implication died off with the student. So to answer your question, I have a huge amount of literature on the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, which enables you to understand the secret meaning. So yes, secret meaning of the Rig Veda is equal to the meaning that you have in the Upanishads. But directly if you read the Veda and say, मेरे को A to B मिलाना है, you may not be able to find it easily.
Second thing, this is the topmost, Vedas are topmost in a hierarchy wise.
Correct. It is the topmost. It is the topmost because everything in Indian civilization flows from the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda.
I have a related question, Raj, as Sunil says.
Yeah.
ये गीता, भगवत गीता में जो 10.22 है वो ये सामवेद को वेदों में श्रेष्ठ बताता है, ऐसा क्यों है? हाँ.
क्योंकि जो सामवेद है उसका जो चैंटिंग मोड है बहुत म्यूजिकल है. इट्स नॉट लाइक म्यूजिक. उसमें बहुत फंडामेंटल आपका जो भी नोट्स है, ऋषभ है, आप तो जानते हैं,
ऋषभ गांधार सब जानते हैं.
हाँ, या all that is derived from the basic tones of chanting of the Samaveda. ऐसे करेंगे. If you should listen to Samaveda. आप जो है after this session you just click to listen to Samaveda. उसमें जो basic vibrations आते हैं, they're very good for the body and good for the listener. That is why in chanting the Samaveda is the most beautiful to hear, and it takes a longer period because the Samaveda, the basic content of the Samaveda is derived from Rig Veda and from Yajur Veda, but it is chanted in a different way. It is chanted musically, and therefore, content-wise, it is not different. It is a subset of Samaveda is a subset of Rig Veda and Yajur Veda, but lesser in number. But the entire chanting is different.
अच्छा, और गीता लिखे जाने तक शायद अथर्ववेद मौजूद नहीं था, इसलिए वो लोग 3 वेद की बात करते हैं.
Yeah, so Atharvaved came later. So usually when you say in very traditional literature, you will say Teen Ved. But subsequently, when Atharvaved also came into existence, and it is not any lesser Veda than it is only a more recent Veda. It became, Chaturvedi to hain, Trivedi hain, Dvivedi hain. That's how the names come, because they indicated the Vedas that people had to learn by heart in the family tradition. But of course, as I say, right now you only have highly Vedic families who know the Vedas by heart, in which their job, because to learn one Veda takes about 12 years. Because you have to repeat again and again, till the rhythm, and not one akshara has to change, because you will be passing it to the next generation after your teacher dies. So you cannot afford to pass an error to the generation. So इसीलिए उनको ठोक के. But what's happening these days is there is no importance given to chanting, which is why UN has to call chanting as a heritage habit or heritage culture.
Heritage entity.
So that is the reason. See, the moment the Brahmins don't learn to chant the Veda, they are of no use. They are as bad or as good as anyone else, because they were living memory banks of the Vedas, which is why they were respected. If you are not a memory bank of the Veda, as I keep telling, जो मेरे cousins हैं, सब लोग वेद नहीं पढ़ते, जाके कोडिंग करते हैं सैन होजे में. So they are not Brahmins in the true sense of the word. True sense, very, very original, authentic sense. Original, authentic sense is, he should have spent 30 years of his life, and therefore the Brahmins were given land and this thing, because they cannot earn their living. They lived on the daan of others, because उनका एक ही काम था, आप अपना जो family का संप्रदाय है, for example, my family संप्रदाय is Yajurved. It's a Krishna Yajurved. You ask me, do you know one Krishna Yajurved? I only know one, one one little section which is 3 pages, उसी को याद करते हुए पसीना निकल गया. Right. So that is the original understanding. Of course, currently you have so many socio-cultural Marxist, class labels that you should not talk about it at all, because it is a whole range of a unwanted historical deviation. And of course, a lot of incorrect things have also happened in the name of privileges, which you have to understand. Correct? But this is the original meaning. जो ब्राह्मण आदमी है उसको वेद के सिवाय और कुछ आता नहीं है. He should be stupid in everything else.
अच्छा, ये वेदा का थोड़ा समराइज कर सकते हैं कि व्हाट इट कवर्स एग्जैक्टली, लाइक अथर्ववेदा, सामवेदा, यजुर्वेदा एंड ऋग्वेदा.
सर, वो मैं एक और क्लास में कराऊंगा. ये 10 मिनट में नहीं होगा. Okay. If you want.
सेकंड थिंग, ये आपने एक शुरुआत में कही थी कि 10 पार्ट में 10 उसमें डिवाइड है. फिर वो खत्म हो गया, फिर हम लोग 4 पे आ गए कि संहिता, अरण्यका, ब्राह्मणा एंड उपनिषद. वो 10 क्या थे?
नहीं, 10 मंडल बोलते हैं उसको.
हाँ, 10 मंडल, सॉरी.
हाँ, इट इज अ सब डिविजन ऑफ द ऋग्वेदा. तो ऋग्वेदा में अभी 10 मंडल हैं, इसमें कोई कमी नहीं है. मैं आपको दिखाता हूं. मेरे पास जो है, देखिए, ये जो किताब छपी है.
आप इस किताब की बात कर रहे हैं?
नहीं, आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट एक्चुअल ऋग्वेद मंत्र. ये ऋग्वेद संहिता है, आपको दिख रहा है ना. तो ये जो है पब्लिश हुआ है हमारे, किसने पब्लिश किया है? स्वर्गीय श्री नागशरण सिंह जी ने पब्लिश किया है. और ये जो है कहाँ से पब्लिश किया है? जवाहर नगर, दिल्ली से. तो इसमें जो है आपको दिख रहा है ना, 10 मंडल दिख रहे हैं ना आपको ऐसे.
हाँ.
तो दैट्स व्हाट आई मीन बाय 10 मंडल. या अष्टक भी हैं, यू कैन आल्सो क्लासिफाई इट एज इन द बॉटम विद अष्टका. तो ऋग्वेद में या तो आप 10 मंडली बोलेंगे या अष्टका बोलेंगे. अष्टका मीन्स 8. तो इसमें जो है सारे ऋग हैं. जैसे पहला ऋग जो है बहुत फेमस है, और इसको जो है आर्य समाज वाले भी बहुत चैंट करते हैं. अग्निमीले पुरोहितम यज्ञस्य देवरत्मजम होतारम रत्नघातम. इसका मीनिंग भी है बहुत कुछ. मीनिंग वी कैन गो ऑन. सो मंडल हैं उसके, एंड दे स्टिल एग्जिस्ट. टू आंसर योर क्वेश्चन,
तो मंडल इज लाइक चैप्टर्स.
मंडल इज लाइक अ चैप्टर.
So kind of. So
Yeah, kind of.
all the Vedas have got mandals, different mandals.
नहीं. तो ये मंडल जो पार्ट है, that is only for the
ऋग्वेदा.
For यजुर्वेदा it is called प्रपाठका और अध्याय. अगर आपका शुक्ल यजुर्वेद है तो अध्याय बोलते हैं. अगर आपका कृष्ण यजुर्वेद है उसको प्रपाठक बोलते हैं. Different way of subdividing.
I think
Can you suggest some books for the beginners?
हाँ, ये बुक है, इन्होंने मुझे रेफर किया था, मैंने मंगाया था.
हाँ, करेक्ट, मेरे पास भी है.
डॉक्टर BSN प्रसाद.
करेक्ट.
हाँ, तो ये बुक सबको लेना चाहिए वेदा का कंसेप्ट समझने के लिए. ये जो हायरार्की है, डायग्राम्स है, सब डिविजन्स है, ये सारी चीजें समझने के लिए ये बुक सफिशिएंट है. पतली बुक है, ज्यादा महंगी भी नहीं है, अवेलेबल है इजीली. ये 150 रुपए की किताब है.
इसका लिंक भेज दीजिएगा सुनील जी.
हाँ, मैं भेज दूंगा, लिंक भेज दूंगा.
रेफरेंस इसका भेज दीजिएगा.
इंडियन रिलीजियस लिटरेचर कैटेगराइज्ड.
करेक्ट.
और ये इस तरह की अपनी अकेली किताब है. ये मैंने किताबें बहुत ढूंढी थी, तो राज से बात किया था, तो उन्होंने मुझे ये किताब रेफर किया था.
अच्छा, ओके.
तो ये जो है टेबल 2 है, मैं आपको दिखा रहा हूँ ब्रॉडली. ये पेज आपका जो है श्रुति लिटरेचर में है. सो द सेम थिंग दैट आई टोल्ड, ये आपके 4 कॉलम्स हो गए. ये सो इफ यू हैव दिस बुक, then I don't have to create PowerPoint slide, because PowerPoint slides का क्रिएट करना तो जिंदगी भर लग जाएगा.
क्योंकि ये लगता है होमवर्क करने से कुछ अप्रिशिएट अच्छा कर पाएंगे, क्योंकि अभी बिगिनर्स के लिए उचित पढ़िए, नहीं अदरवाइज ना कि वो ऊपर से निकल जाएगा या चीज वो नहीं समझ पाते हैं. ये एक हिच है.
और एंड सुनील सिरस्तोगी, फॉर सामवेद द डिवीजन इज कॉल्ड कांडम. आग्नेय कांडम, ये कांडम. So the sectionalization, the sectioning of the Vedas in the Rig Veda is called Mandala. In the Yajurveda it's called Prapataka. In the Samaveda it is called what did I say?
अध्याय.
नहीं, कांडम कांडम
कांडम, ओके।
जैसे कि अरण्य कांड है ना, आपने महाभारत
हाँ 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 हाँ।
रामायण में, एंड इसमें भी जो है कांडम है आपका, जो अथर्ववेद है, तो डिवीजन है। सो दिस बाइट से अब देखिए, सिर्फ मंत्र ही मंत्र जो हैं, दे आर जस्ट लाइक दिस, इतना है, लेकिन इसमें कोई मीनिंग नहीं है। इट इज ओनली फॉर चैंटिंग। आप अगर आप चैंट जानते हैं तो इसको खोल के आप चैंट कर सकते हैं। इट इज वाइडली, इट इज पब्लिश्ड इन दिल्ली, नो, नाग पब्लिशर्स, सो दे हैव इट। So if you are able to, I mean, if you want to have a copy of the Vedas at home, whether you read it or not, you can buy this and keep it. भाई हमारे पास वेद तो रखे हैं, of course, उसको पढ़े बिना तो कुछ नहीं होगा, but at least for the sake of being Hindu, if you want to have, buy this and keep it at home and keep it in the puja room.
उपनिषद में भी श्लोक हैं, जैसे कि उसमें गीता में थे, तो इसमें भी श्लोक हैं, उसी का डिस्क्रिप्शन समझेंगे हम लोग, या किस फॉर्म में है टेक्स्ट इसका।
Yeah. So some most Upanishads have shlokas. I mean, so you won't call it shloka, you will call it a rik or a yajus. Of course, you will not call it saman, because Upanishads are not sung, they are chanted. So most of it is in poetic form, but sometimes it is in prose form also. So you have prose based, like the Taittiriya Upanishad is a prose based thing. So I'll just tell you कहाँ है। जो आपका जैसे जो है तैत्तिरीय उपनिषद है, तैत्तिरीय उपनिषद is obviously from the Krishna Yajurveda. So Taittiriya Upanishad is just, see, it is just prose. And some Upanishads, most Upanishads are just prose. But if you take the Katha Upanishad is actually, though it is not printed like that, let me just see. They have not printed it, but then it is in the form of shlokas. Shlokas is a more organized way of putting it in poetic form.
राजेश, आप वो साइट देखिए, उसमें उपनिषद ऑलरेडी अवेलेबल है, तो आपको पढ़ने में आसानी रहेगी। तो जो जिस फॉर्मेट में है वो सीधे सीधे दिखेगा।
Correct.
फोकस में उसी में कर लेंगे तो अच्छा है, ठीक है।
Yeah, so if you can just, because see, once you get the structure, it is very easy. See, the thing is that since we have never approached the subject at all, you think it is something which cannot be understood. It is very easy to understand, provided the foundations are laid in terms of the key ideas. So I think it's something that's very, very easily manageable. Okay, I will turn to Bishwarup now for his thoughts or his questions or queries.
Actually, I have a peculiar question to ask, because our learned people, Sunil Ji Garg, Sunil Rastogi, they have asked very, very intricate questions. Now, my question is not so intricate. My question is application of Upanishads in the present day, like the war is going on between Ukraine and Soviet Union. So, yajna for world peace, is it possible through Upanishads? The mantras and yajna for world peace or purification of the atmosphere in the world, is it possible through Upanishads? Mantras in Upanishads?
So you see, we must understand that there is a separate branch of Vedic study called Prayoga.
Okay.
So Prayoga, what Prayoga does is, आपका एक लक्ष्य है, you want to end war, you want rain, for example, there's a drought, you want rain, or you want, there's a putra kameshti, भाई आपका पुत्र नहीं हुआ तो आपको पुत्र चाहिए, जैसे as people used to have in those days. So Vedic scholars have compiled the riks and the yajus and the samans into a sequence which is called Prayoga. So it's like saying that this is the resource bank of the Samahitas, and from there I will draw from here, there, and say that, boss, this mantra from here, this shloka from here, this rik from there, this yaju from here, if chanted in this sequence with this ritualistic action, fool dalna, havan karna, should give you what you. So you cannot directly chant the Upanishad and say, I'll get world peace. You have to look at the Prayoga. So जो आपका जो वैदिक स्कूल होता है, पहले 12 साल तो आपको संहिता पढ़ाते हैं, संहिता, ब्राह्मणा, आरण्यका और उपनिषद पढ़ाते हैं। फिर 12 साल के बाद प्रयोग पढ़ाते हैं। इफ आई वांट टू डू लेट अस से महामृत्युंजय होमम, करेक्ट, तो यू आर नॉट सिंपली गोइंग टू से त्रयंबकम यजामहे सुगंधिम पुष्टिवर्धनम ना, वो तो आपका महामृत्युंजय मंत्र हो गया। वो थोड़ी बोलोगे उसके आगे रहता है, पीछे रहता है, उसका पूंछ रहता है, उसका so all that structure is built by what is called prayog. Prayog is utilization. So you can say that the Vedas and Upanishads are science, prayoga is technology. So we have to use the technology to end the war, but not the science.
Okay.
So all these Vedic experts and Pandits are actually of great value because they come with prayogas. तो आप जो है किसी पंडित को बुलाते हो, कहते हो भाई हमारे को जो है ये पूजा करना है। So पूजा is a prayoga. क्यों? What they do is भाई ऋग्वेद से, यहाँ से भाई ऋग्वेद में बड़े सारे मंत्र हैं, सरस्वती के, अग्नि के, इंद्र के. So he will choose, I mean, so over centuries, now this is not something which is happening in one day, right? Over centuries, brains after brains after brains who know the Vedic stuff up and down, they have said ये जो है ये आपका सत्यनारायण पूजा हो गया, पुराण से, ऋग से, so it has come by tradition that so काली माता का पूजा ऐसे होता है because they are pulled out from here, there, everywhere. So that is what it is. So you need application for not direct reading. So direct reading is for jnanis. Application is so you can understand the difference. No, science is in the laboratories, technology is everywhere. I mean, we have all been technologists. Now we are going back to science, which is what we are doing.
Okay.
Right.
ज्ञानी का मतलब है मोक्ष से।
हाँ, बिल्कुल सर। So you're going back to source code पे जा रहे हैं हम लोग।
अच्छा, इसको चैंट करने के लिए डू वी नो एनीबॉडी ये जो कर सकते हैं इसका दिस सॉर्ट ऑफ प्रयोग?
बिल्कुल आप YouTube में करो, ईशोपनिषद चैंट करो, मिल जाएगा, 1000 मिलेगा आपको। YouTube में क्या नहीं मिलता। Our YouTube boss is Sunil Ji Garg. He will send you some 100 things. So
नहीं, but I think विष्णु पूछ रहे हैं वार ऐड करने के लिए कौन सा प्रयोग लगेगा।
हाँ, वही मैं बोल रहा हूँ। Not only war, हम लोग
आप सीक्रेट समझ रहे हैं सुनील जी, सीक्रेट समझना, मीनिंग के साथ सीक्रेट भी।
मीनिंग के साथ सीक्रेट भी, करेक्ट, absolutely correct. So yeah, so there are prayogas which are there for winning a war. So Atharva Veda is full of that. Atharva Veda is full of prayogas also. So if there is a scorpion bite, what is the mantra to chant? But of course, see, the whole point in Atharva Veda is that it is it is in fact the first of the technology oriented Vedas. So Atharva Veda mein, in fact, I have translations. Actually, after Upanishad, we should go to Veda. That will be even longer study, which will be more fun. So let's do the Upanishads because I cannot cover everything in one go. There's too much of ज्ञान overload and memory overload.
So बता तो दिया तुमने कि 12 साल लगने हैं। So we have to be prepared.
No. So, and that is only to learn chanting. So you see, what I'll be doing is, see, I don't know how to chant. I know how to chant one or two things which are very popular, but otherwise the intricate things I don't know, and I'll be able to read it probably, and that too with great difficulty, but not chant at all. Unless you hear it and recite it, you will not be able to recollect it, and you cannot be able to chant it. So we look at the meaning, so I have a lot of professors. In fact, one very important disciple of Aurobindo, Professor R.L. Kashyap, he was a professor emeritus at the University of Purdue. He's done his PhD from the Harvard Engineering School. And he is the one who has written a modern interpretation of the Gita. So his website is veda.com. I'll send it to you. Everybody, so the entire translation of the Vedas will cost you 10,000 rupees. Again, recommended to buy and keep at home, even if you don't read it.
But just to inform the class कि एक्चुअली गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने काफी सारे वेदास के चैंटिंग की इस तरह के स्कॉलर्स या एक्सपर्ट्स के द्वारा वो कलेक्ट किया है एक साइट पर। वो साइट का लिंक भी मैं भेज दूंगा जिसमें वो लाइव चैंटिंग करते हैं उसकी।
Absolutely. A very, very traditional chanting. So just to give you an idea as to how, so whatever little chant that I know, I thought I'll just share 2 minutes of that with you so that, we understand. So this is from the Krishna Yajurveda. So Krishna Yajurveda, there is a very famous chant called Rudra Prashnaha. This is for Lord Shiva. So I'll chant one little chapter, which is actually 10 lines. So this is how it goes. And I'm not chanting from memory, because you see, the highest level of expertise is you have it by heart. I am reading from chanting and readings. This is one who reads and chant in traditional is called patit. Usko buddhu hai wo. But even that is very difficult. So anyway, so this is how it goes. Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya. Om Namaste Rudramanyava Utot Ishave Namaha. Namaste Astu Dhanvane Bahubhyamutate Namaha. Yata Ishu Shivatama Shivam Babhuvate Danuhu. Shiva Sharavya Tavataya no Rudramudaya. Yate Rudra Shivata Nura Ghora Papa Kashini. Taya Nastanu Vashantamaya Girishanta Pichakashihi. Yamishum Girishanta Haste Bivarshyastave. Shivam Girittatam Kuruma Higumsi Purusham Jagat. Shivena Vachasa Tva Girishacha Vadamasi. Yathana Sarvamid Jagada Yakshmagam Sumana Asat. Adhyavoshada Vivakta Prathamo Devyo Vishat. Ahigascha Sarva Anjam Bhayan Sarva Ashchayatu Dhanyah. Aso Yastamro Arunota Babrusumangalah. Ye Chemagam Rudra Abito Dikshu Shrita Sahasasho Vaishagam Heda Imahe. Aso Yuva Sarpati Nila Grivo Vilohita. Utainam Gopa Adashanna Dashanna Duharya. Utainam Vishwa Bhutani Surstomadayatina. Namo Astu Nila Grivaya Sahasrakshaya Mirushe. Atho ye Asya Satvanoham Tebhyo Karannama. Pramuncha Dhanvanasava Mupayoratni Yorjam. Yashtate Hasta Ishava Parata Bhagavova. Avatatya Dhanustvagam Sahasraksha Shudhe. Nishirya Shalyana Mukha Shivona Sumana Bhava. Vijham Danukka Pradino Vishalyo Banavagamuta. Anneshannas Yeshava Abhurasya Nishangati. Yate Hetir Midhushtamhaste Bhabuvate Danuhu. Tayasman Vishwatas Mayakshmaya Paribhuja. Namaste Astvayudhaya Natataya Drishnave. Ubhabhyamutate Namo Bahubhyam Tavadhanvane. Parite Dhanvano Hetarasmanmanattu Vishwatah. Atho ya Ishudistvare Asman Nidehitam. Shambhave Namaha. Namaste Astu Bhagavan Vishveshwaraya Mahadevaya Trambakaya Tripurantakaya Trikagni Kalaya Kalagni Rudraya Neelakantaya Mrityunjayaya Sarveshwaraya Sada Shivaya Shriman Mahadevaya Namaha. तो ये जो है
beautiful.
So this is the traditional verse. So people know this by heart. This is supposed to be basic, but this itself takes some practice to be able to do. And this is basically, this is a prayer to Lord Shiva. So this is chanted on. So this is how a traditional Vedic chanting, of course.
But
you can access a lot
किसी particular Veda से ही है?
Yeah, Sri Krishna Yajurveda में Rudra Prashna. So you can do that. You will find far greater experts chanting. I am at base level. So far greater experts chanting this. And, there's a beautiful rhythm, you can feel the power of the rhythm. The power of the rhythm is the power of the Vedas. So that is a tradition. So, we need to understand the tradition and learn from it. So we will go into the Vedas also, one of these days, let's go through the Upanishads, because Upanishads are more philosophical and they give a lot of content to the Gita. So now that we've done the Gita, it's logical to go to Upanishad. But Upanishad to Veda is a very, very dicey link. We have to really work hard to establish that link, because you have to understand a lot of background knowledge to be able to do that, which we will do. Not an issue. Yes, sir. So what's the time?
पोयम से दिल का ताल्लुक लगता है, जुड़ता है, लव से ऐसा लगता है ना, उससे प्रेम बढ़ेगा. अदरवाइज क्या होता है ना, उससे दूर दूर रहेगा. कुछ ऐसा हो जाता है कि चैंट करने से विल फील द अप्रिसिएशन थ्रू. गाना गाए नहीं प्रेम होगा.
Absolutely. See that last part was really good, Namaste astu Bhagavan Vishveshwaraya Mahadevaya Trayambakaya Tripurantakaya Trikagni Kalaya Kalagni Rudraya Neelakantaya Mrityunjayaya Sarveshwaraya Sadashivaya Shriman Mahadevaya Namaha. ना तो उसका जो रिदम होता है वो इतना फैंटास्टिक होता है, इतना मैजेस्टिक रिदम होता है that it just gets you uplifted.
तो
So
मुझे
that's
लगता
something.
है ये श्रुति के दौरान रिदम भी पास किया गया है।
Yes, स्वर होता है सर। स्वर जो है आपको उदित होता है, उदित स्वरित और ऐसे एक तो लेवल होता है, एक ऊपर होता है और एक नीचे जाता है। So not only do you have to learn the pronunciation properly, you have to also learn कि किस स्वर में आप उसको जो है चैंट करोगे, विश्वेश्वराय महादेवाय त्रयंबकाय, तो ऐसा ऐसा रिदम रहता है। तो उसको जस्ट टू एक्सप्लेन दैट पॉइंट टू यू,
हम लोग म्यूजिक में टिम्बर, टोन और पिच बोलते हैं, वो तीनों चीजें इसमें ट्रांसफर हुई हैं।
एब्सोल्युटली एब्सोल्युटली राइट। एंड जस्ट टू गिव यू एन एग्जांपल, ये कोई भी आपको जो है वैदिक चैंटिंग का बुक मिलेगा तो आपको ये नीचे लाइंस मिलेंगे, दिख रहे हैं ना? तो जो नीचे जहां जहां लाइन है उसको टिम्बर विल बी लो, जो भी ऊपर लाइंस हैं टिम्बर विल बी हाई। तो ऊपर में अगर आप देखेंगे कहाँ है इसमें, हाँ दिखेगा कहीं बीच में, ऊपर में 2 लाइन होंगे। सो इफ
टिम्बर
यू
नहीं,
हैव
टोन।
सो इट इज टोन, सॉरी, टोन। सो it's like what you have in musical notation, no? Musical notation tells you
में ऐसा ही होता है। हाँ।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल। So it's the same thing except that this is a far more fundamental thing, it is not based on instruments, it's based only on the vocal sort of flexibility of the
वो हम लोग बोलते हैं कि उसमें मंद्र सप्तक लगाना है, जब नीचे की लाइन है नॉर्मल है तो मध्य सप्तक लगाना है, ऊपर की लाइन है तो तार सप्तक लगाना है।
करेक्ट। अभी इसने पास किया ना, हिंदुस्तानी पास हो गया ना। Right. In fact, this Hindustani music is based on the Samaveda and the Saptaswaras is all derived. So I will conclude with the point that the Vedas are the source of all facets of Indian culture. Music, art, dance, drama, everything is there. In fact, I have such a wonderful book which I'll just show you.
Even defense.
Yeah. मेरे पास एक आर्ट ऑफ वॉर इन द वेदास है, मैं उसको निकालूंगा, आर्ट ऑफ वॉर इन द वेदास। और मेरे पास ये एक बुक है फैंटास्टिक, ड्रामेटिक वर्जन ऑफ 7 उपनिषद्स।